I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Is that the sign-up sheet, Shelley? Okay, good. We're going to move to item 3, special presentations for the 165th anniversary presentation of the Quilt. And this is being presented by Steve and Beverly Allen, owners of One Quilt Place, located in Fredericksburg, Texas, in honor of the 175th anniversary of the founding of the city in May of 1846. This anniversary quilt will be on display at the Fredericksburg Visitors Information Center for residents and visitors all to enjoy.
Steve, turn around this way. Sit. Thank you.
I didn't even see him coming.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, there you go.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your generosity. And we'll move to item number 4, employee recognitions. Kent?
Mayor and council members, for the benefit of the public that may be tuned in this evening for the first time or in the audience for the first time, this is the opportunity for us to recognize any employee who has, we've received some positive comments on, either through email or letters or phone calls. And this evening, I just have one that I want to share with the council and the public. This is a letter received last week from Dan Jenkins, who lives on Shorty Crenwelge Road. And Mr. Jenkins said, I wish, this is directed to our EMS first responders. It says, I wish to express my gratitude for your services in the early hours of Tuesday, February 16th, in getting me to the emergency room. I was experiencing an unexpected serious health crisis. The weather was terrible with a buildup of ice and snow over many days. When my wife attempted to drive me to the emergency room, she realized that she was not going to be able to get across the creek and through the gate due to fallen trees and branches. A call to 911 was a blessing. Thank you for your rapid response in getting to me and walking me down the icy snow-packed road, across the creek, and through the fallen trees to the ambulance. What a relief for my wife that you were there to help. Many thanks also to the first responders who returned a few hours later to clear the roadway and get the gate open so my wife would not be isolated by herself during the many days of cold weather. We are truly grateful. Please know that your efforts allowed me to get the medical attention I needed. We are blessed to have you in our community. Stay well, stay safe. Sincerely, Dan A. Jenkins. So again, I wanted to share that with the council and the public. It's one of many letters and emails we get throughout the year praising and complimenting our employees for their outstanding efforts. So, Mayor, that's all I have for this evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, before we go to public comment, we have a bunch of young ladies here from the Girl Scouts, and I would like to move item 9C, consider, discuss, and take action regarding the approval of the lease renewal of the Girl Scouts of Central Texas for the use of the city facility known as the Girl Scout Cabin. Young ladies, would y'all stand up? I'd like to see who you are. Yeah, let's give them a hand, guys. Before we do that, we have a few people who have signed up to speak to that, if you don't mind. Bonnie? And Bonnie, you'll have 3 minutes if you take all three, and then you'll have a 1-minute warning from Eric.
May I take my mask?
You sure may.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and City Council members. I'm Bonnie Munn-Bezique, and I am the Service Unit Director for the Girl Scouts, the Fredericksburg Girl Scouts. I'm a former Girl Scout leader. I'm a former Girl Scout. I'm a former Girl Scout leader. I'm a current Girl Scout leader, and the Service Unit Director. Our troop number is 44101. We're a multi-level troop. That means we go from kindergarten to, right now, the 6th grade, but it can go all the way to high school. There are approximately 65 girls in our service unit that call the Girl Scout cabin home. And the Girl Scout cabin has been the home for the Girl Scouts for 75 years. I'm here today asking that you extend the lease for the Girl Scout cabin until the Girl Scouts of Central Texas Council and the Fredericksburg Service Unit have time to formulate a plan to renovate and secure bids to be presented at this time next year to the city manager and to the city council. The extension of this lease is imperative to our long-range plans for the cabin. We are planning to start a community fundraising campaign with an open house during the 175th anniversary celebration for all former Girl Scouts, troop leaders, and all future Girl Scouts to help pay for the renovation of the cabin. Thank you so much for your time to let me speak today, and thank you for your service to our community.
Thank you, Bonnie. Appreciate it.
We have two little girls.
I got it. Hey, I'm not going to cut those two gals short. Our next speaker is going to be Harper Hudson. Is that correct, Harper? Okay. Would somebody help her there? Yeah, there comes Mom. Harper, how old are you?
I'm 6.
6 years old. Well, welcome to City Council meeting. Please go on.
Thank you, City Council, for letting us speak tonight. I'm a Daisy Scout. This is my 2nd year. This year, I sold 921 boxes of cookies. Most of those
Yeah.
The Daisies love having our meetings at the Girl Scout cabin. Please let us keep our Girl Scout cabin. Thank you.
Thank you, Harper. Appreciate it. Good job. Good job. And our next speaker would be Evelyn Cox. Evelyn,
Yeah.
thank you for coming.
My name is Evelyn Cox, and I'm 10 years old. I'm here to represent the Girl Scouts of Fredericksburg to ask your help to save our cabin. It was built especially for the Girl Scouts in 1945, and it's been our home ever since. Please give us your support. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Council questions, concerns? Bobby?
No questions.
I think it's a great organization and we need to extend the lease.
Okay.
I'm biased. I'm a former Girl Scout.
That doesn't mean you have to recuse yourself.
I will tell you, I'm well aware of the Girl Scout Hut. Probably the folks that don't know that thing was under a foot of water probably in 1955 or 56. It's a great little facility for the girls, and I'm looking forward to many years of for them to be calling that home. It's a great, good place to be. So With no further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
Move.
Moved by Bobby, second.
Second.
Second by Polly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Just for our information, Mr. Liebenbach will not be able to be present tonight because of an illness. Okay, we're going to move now to public comments. Under the Texas Open Meetings Act, each person making a public comment has a right to publicly voice concerns or criticism of the city council, including criticism of any act, omission, policy, procedure, program, or service. However, the right does not extend to public criticism that is otherwise prohibited by law. To ensure that all members of the public can be heard in a fair and impartial and respectful manner, any public comment that includes defamation, intimidation, personal assaults, profanity, or threats of violence is prohibited. So thank you very much. Okay, our first speaker for public comment would be Kimberly Hams, and you'll have 3 minutes with a 1-minute warning. And Kimberly, I think most people know you're a city citizen, but would you let us know you're a city citizen? Thank you.
Hi, thank you. My name is Kimberly Lambs, and I do live in town. Thank you for the time tonight. Nice to see all your full faces today. Today I'm here to present some data to you, since we spent months listening to COVID data. So I would like to bring your attention to the VAERS data, which is CDC-approved and recognized data of adverse reports that happen after people get vaccinated. So from the COVID vaccination, which again, legally by definition is not a vaccine, it is a shot. From December 1st to April 13th, there have been 3,005 deaths. And that's a tiny fraction of the reality, because only about 1% of data is actually reported to this system. There have been 941 cases of permanent disability, 1,484 life-threatening cases, 4,961 people hospitalized, and 8,946 people sent to the emergency room. All other vaccines besides the COVID vaccine combined from the year 2007 to 2020, which is more than 13 years, is 3,001. So already in 4 months, these experimental COVID shots have topped that. I really want you guys to consider what you are promoting on the city website as city officials. This is dangerous. This is a clinical trial, brand new technology that is being experimented on everybody that lines up to get this jab. I'm formally asking that the City Council cease and desist from this vaccine program immediately. You do not want to be advocating for something that is causing people to die or get autoimmune disorders. I am also concerned that the people of this town are not receiving all the available information. Did you know that in Moderna's 10-year company history, they have never had even one FDA-approved drug? Until this one, which skipped most of the normal trials that other drugs and vaccines go through. Pfizer has been a habitual offender, persistently engaging in illegal and corrupt marketing practices, bribing physicians, and suppressing adverse trial results. Since 2002, the company and its subsidiaries have been assessed $3 billion in criminal convictions, civil penalties, and jury awards. And as we all know, the J&J has already been shut down. By advocating and continuing to promote this shot, you are all complicit in any deaths or injuries that result here, whether you think so or not. You represent the city, and the city is pushing it down people's throats. I am asking that the COVID info be removed from the city's homepage and replaced with the VAERS data. It can go somewhere else. You certainly know how to hide information on that website for other subject matter, so please do the same with this.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Marilee Marshall. Again, if you'll let us know if you're a city citizen.
She does.
I'm Mary Lee Marshall. I live in Fredericksburg. 30 years ago, I was a nurse's aide. I worked in 3 different nursing homes. If I had told the nurse in charge to stop harassing me, I would have been fired on the spot, I hope. My point is, everyone is accountable to someone. Paychecks don't just fall out of the sky. They are written by the boss. The city council seems to have forgotten they are accountable to the taxpayers. The other point I have is this: public servants who tell the public to shut up apparently think they have all the answers. If the public doesn't fight back, we have top-down government. This leads to socialism or some other ism that serves only the elite. The Constitution was written by people who had lived with top-down government and knew how self-serving it becomes. We do not accept top-down government.
Thank you. Tom Marshall. And Tom, you've also signed up for 9E, is that correct? Okay, thank you.
My name's Tom Marshall. Been a permanent citizen of Fredericksburg for 30 years. May I have a moment of silence, please? Dear God, grant me the presence of mind to choose the words that will convey my message, and may my message be received with the intent that I try to convey tonight. Thank you. All right, I want to talk about the emergency declaration. I'm going to start by talking about a little bit of a historical anecdote. I've cleaned it up for all appropriate audiences. Sometime back when Winston Churchill was at a dinner with the Queen of England, he leans over and says, "Would you go on a date with me for 10 million pounds? The Queen says, "Oh, I think something could be arranged." Churchill then says, "Would you go on a date with me for 5 shillings? The Queen indignantly says, "What do you think I am?" Churchill says, "What you are has already been established. We're merely haggling the price." Now, why is that pertinent today? Here is a copy of the Constitution. Would you trade this Constitution for $500,000? $1.5 million? There are people on the council apparently think that that's fair trade. I have in my hand here 30 pieces of silver.
1 minute.
Would you trade these 30 pieces of silver for that Constitution? Are you afraid of the stigma that trading 30 pieces of silver would have? I suggest what you're doing has already been established. The fact that you're doing it for $500,000 instead of 30 pieces of silver is irrelevant. That $500,000 is also only about 2% of the average operating budget for the city. A number of people lost way much more than 2% of their annual operating budget because of this emergency declaration. Please consider those facts and let's do something about this nonsense.
Thank you. Timothy Riley, and then Jeanette, you'd be up after Timothy. Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, my name is Timothy Ellis Riley. I hope Mr. Lukenbach is doing well. Just looking through our agenda today, just like a couple weeks ago, I don't necessarily see the fingerprints that that I would like to see up here. Mr. Luca, I was hoping that he was going to be here today. I've been trying to meet with him. At this point, he's the current city council member that reached out to me to get something on the agenda. And that actually reflects a lot more of, what we can actually get done. I guess ultimately why I keep coming up here every city council meeting is that, we're getting a lot done. It's 220 pages document that we're trying to get done in a matter of a few hours. But I just think that it's not efficient enough. I don't think we're getting enough done. Short-term rentals, guidelines, those things have been talked about quite a bit over the last few months. And I think they were supposed to be on the docket. Upgraded websites, these kinds of things that I know, despite COVID or anything that's been holding us back over the last few months or year, I just continue. This feels like a kind of in order to get something done, you have to be persistent. And that's why I continue to speak at each of these meetings. And I would love to be, I would love for the city, just like I heard Ms. Rickert speak in the Chamber of Commerce forum the other night, to be able to continually reach out more. I think most of you would agree. I've sat down with each of you, and I think that in general we all agree on all these issues, but it's been over a year, and I feel like I'm the broken record. So, 1 minute. Thank you. So I think that's why we end up getting a lot of frustrated people up here. How does it work? Is it me just being persistent? Saying I'm here. The other people here, is it us being persistent, saying, hey, we're here, we're not going anywhere? Because this is, hard work. So I just ask that this agenda actually reflect that very large 100-page document. And looking at this, I don't see any members' names as a part of these. I see a lot of hard work that has to be presented by our city employees today. But I guess I would be curious, how many of y'all's names are attached to these agenda items, and then how y'all are working together to accomplish that 100-page document. Because I continue to not see it on our agendas at the meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Jeanette, you're next. And then George, you would be after Ms. Hormuth. Jeanette, you know the routine, 3 minutes and a warning, right?
Yes.
Okay.
So it's Jeanette, and I live in Fredericksburg, and Kimberly kind of covered almost exactly what I wanted to say. We used to all year round have the fire chief go on and on and on about all these statistics about this big threat that turned out to be not such a big threat. But we are more concerned about the vaccine at this point. And I'm not going to cover the VAERS data. She did that, except to point out that that is 1% of what's actually being reported. The true figure is multiply that. Is 90% more, so that's even more disturbing. But because it's a voluntary reporting tool. But I do want to point out that Johnson & Johnson was going to come here in Fredericksburg, and there was going to be a big vaccination blitz day, which got canceled because J&J, 4 vaccinations, major vaccination sites across the country shut down because of blood clots, and now it's on pause. So I want to say that she didn't cover this, but 795 reports for all 3 vaccines for blood clots has been reported. And so that's 400 reports on Pfizer, 337 for Moderna. Moderna is what we're using now. Again, multiply that by 90%. Okay, it's only 1%, and 56 for J&J, which just came out. So my issue is that, again, these things are not being explained in the paper. All of this promotion is all glowing.
We are not supposed to be, the hospital and the health department and the city of Fredericksburg is not supposed to be a car salesman. Car salesmen might withhold information because they want to sell you that car. You have a responsibility to give, you know, this information, and she told you about it. The problems with these, they have not been thoroughly studied, haven't gone through all the studies. We've gone through all that. We've given you all that. But I do want to say one major thing that they're, with these types of vaccines, which they've had in former coronavirus vaccines, which is why they have never found one that works, is something called antibody dependency enhancement. And that's something that will occur down the road. That's going to be much more than this. This is nothing, okay? When you come in contact with the live virus down the road, your body goes into a hyper inflammatory, and it's deadly. So informed consent is what we're asking for, and we're asking for, since your money is going to this county, to the hospital for these shots through the resources, through the emergency declaration, you have an obligation to see that there is full informed consent.
Jeanette?
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanette. Appreciate it. George, and then after Mr. Studer is Robert Phoenix.
Hi, I'm George Studer, 1015 Avenue D, pretty new here. What I want to propose today is that we open city council meetings with prayer. And I think there's good reason for that. I think both the COVID situation and our storm here recently should remind us that we're not in charge. I think it's common across of our population here that we believe in God, at least in some form, and we can acknowledge that everyone has a slightly different view of who God is, but that authority over us is the thing that keeps us from being at each other's throat. When we believe we are accountable to the person we'll meet after we die, everyone in here has that same problem, okay? And when we believe that we have higher authority over us, we'll be more accountable. If we can be reminded of that when we come to the meetings, ask for wisdom, ask for help of our council. We have somebody to pray over right tonight. And the employees. When we go to hire new employees or go for a different new venture, we talk about city future plannings. What do we want the city to look like? Well, let's say even acknowledge God that we want him a part of that so that it turns out good. And so for all of our good, I ask you to come under the authority of God before we have these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you, George. Mr. Phoenix, you're up next. And that would be the last speaker for public comment.
My name is Robert Phoenix, and I live in Fredericksburg. I just want to congratulate all of you for not wearing a mask. The mayor here set a trend, and looks like everybody else chimed in. And I think you set a good example for the rest of the community as well. And I certainly hope Mr. Lukenbach is not experiencing any side effects from anything that we've talked about tonight, and he returns very quickly to be part of our community again and help us serve here. What I did want to talk about is the fact that we are banning about the legitimacy or the consent to the vaccine, which luckily enough, it's been voluntary, and I'd like it to remain that way. I'm on the record with both Kimberly and Jeanette that the vaccine itself is not a vaccine. It is a medical technology, and we're in an experimental phase. And unfortunately, that goes against the Nuremberg Code. If you follow the Nuremberg Code, you can't experiment on people without their consent. And that's what's taking place. They've done animal trials with the vaccines, and almost to a T, all the animals passed away. And I certainly hope, and I'd like to echo George's sentiment here about God, that we're protected as a result of our connection and our relationship with a higher power, higher source, so that if we do go through a conflict or we do go through a malady with the vaccines, that through the grace of God, that we'll be able to get through this stuff, because I think we're in pretty serious territory. That said, I want to make sure that we don't cross the Rubicon with vaccine passports. And I just want to be on the record with that. And I know that Governor Abbott has basically made a mandate with that, but it only exists at the state level. And I want to make sure that we're on the record here in Fredericksburg that we don't support the vaccine passport, and we honor the First Amendment, and we can be free to travel and move and assemble wherever we like to be or want to be, and that includes our churches. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Robert. Thank you all for your involvement,
Mayor, if I could,
your comments.
Charlie, you wanted me to maybe clarify a couple of comments?
If you would, please.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you.
First off, wanted to comment, Timothy Riley had mentioned about the STR ordinance process being slow. And I thought he was at the last meeting, but anyway, at the last meeting, according to the minutes, I gave the council and the public a report, Timothy, on why we have slowed down the process. And that is because the council is really concerned about getting public input as much as possible before we bring an ordinance back to the council for consideration. So the council directed staff to have public hearings in May to get input from neighbors, residents on issues and problems that they're having with STRs, also meet with STR owners and reservation agencies and get extensive public input before we had an ordinance drafted. So that is why the process may seem a little bit slow, because we really want to get as much input as possible before we put this back on the council's agenda for consideration. So I thought I gave that report at the last meeting, but I guess maybe it didn't get out there. The second thing is the comment about the number of pages in our packet tonight related to the audit. We are required by state law to do an audit every year, and instead of just posting it on the website or giving a summary report, in the interest of transparency, we decided this year to put the entire audit report in the council's packet, which is available online and to the public, so that they could see all of our financial information and be able to review it and ask any questions that they might have. So that is one reason, Timothy, why the packet is so big tonight, is because the entire audit report is included here. So I think that's probably over half of the document that we have here. And then I wanted to also clarify, there were some comments made that the city is running a vaccination clinic. We are not running a vaccination clinic. We are not providing any financial resources to the vaccination clinic. The clinic is being operated by the Hill Country Memorial Hospital. We have city staff, city council members that volunteer out there, but we are not running the clinic, and we are not providing any financial resources. So I wanted to clarify that for the record, Mayor.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item 6, consent. The following items may be acted upon in a single motion. No separate discussion or action or on any of these items will be held unless pulled by the request of a member of the city council. A, consider approval of the minutes, city council minutes of March 15, 2021. B, consider and discuss action regarding the approval of street closures for the following events: the Kraut Run, closure of West Travis Street and North Crockett Streets to North Adams from 6:30 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Saturday, October the 2nd, 2021. Oktoberfest, the use of the City Hall parking lot on Friday, October the 1st, 2021 at 6 p.m. until Sunday, October the 3rd, 2021 at 8 p.m. The dive bay in the Annex 1 on Friday, October 1, 2021 at 5 p.m. until Sunday, October the 3rd, 2021 at 10 p.m. 2 streets, Adams Street between Main and Austin beginning on Wednesday, September 29th, 2021 at 5 p.m. through Monday, October the 4th at 3 p.m. and Austin Street between Crockett and Adams beginning Thursday, September the 30th at 12 p.m. until Monday, October the 4th at 12 p.m. III, Fredericksburg Food and Wine Fest, closure of Adams Street, parking lane and one southbound lane between Main Street and Austin Street beginning on Thursday, October 21, 2021 at 3 p.m. through Monday, October 25th, 2021 at 12 p.m. Any of these items to be pulled? If so, I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Have a motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Okay, public hearing, 7A. Hold a public hearing to receive citizens' comments for or against the request of John Meeham for Seco Enterprise for annexation and requested zoning of the planned unit development, PUD, for approximately 5.044 acres of land located on the west side of South Eagle Street, approximately 1,000 feet south of the southwest corner of Friendship Lane and South Eagle Street. A motion to go into public hearing
So moved.
by Tom, second by Polly. All those in favor to go into public hearing?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Is there anyone here in the public that would like to address this issue?
Mayor, I move we go out of public hearing into regular session.
Second.
Have a motion by Tom and a second by Bobby. All those in favor to go back into regular session, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. We're going to move item 9A now to this. Consider the approval of annexation agreement of Seco Ventures related to the requested annexation of approximately 5.004 acres of land located on the west side of South Eagle Street, approximately 1,000 feet from the southwest corner of Friendship Lane and South Eagle Street, Z2101, previously discussed March 15th, 2021 and April 5th, 2021 at the City Council regular meeting. Jason?
Thank you, Mayor, Council. If you recall, the last two times we had several issues that we needed to work out with the applicant, and staff got together, met with the developer. We went through kind of several items. You'll see in my packet, we highlighted the several issues. Most of them revolved around the Parkland dedication itself, and then the fees in lieu that are associated with those, and then the park development fees that are associated with that as well. There were some other issues regarding timing of the improvements for the traffic impact study. Those have been kind of rectified. We also settled on 30 parking spaces for the proposed park. Staff felt that that was a comfortable number for additional citizens to attend outside those that were visiting via either friends or through the commercial area. So the only other thing I think that was made on a motion that didn't get included was the looking into the sidewalk. So that was not part of this agreement as they weren't on the sidewalk plan. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have at this time regarding the updated agreement.
Polly?
Yes, so Jason, when would the sidewalk issue normally be addressed? Is that during plat?
Yes, that is during the plating. That's a public infrastructure that would be done during the plating process if they were required by code. So when the applicants come through the preliminary plat process, we look at our regs and we say, we understand, okay, this public utility or this infrastructure is required by code. At that point, they can either build those things and then dedicate them to the city to finalize their plat, or if they need to record their plat prior to dedication, they can give a financial surety, but that is generally done through the plating process.
Okay, so if we want the sidewalk extended down South Eagle Street to the first entrance that's on their current plan, would we want to do that in this agreement, or do we want to wait and do it in the plating process, and would it get done in the plating process?
So if you want to require it, it would be done as part of this process, because again, sidewalks are not required on the city's transportation or sidewalk plan.
Okay.
If it gets handled through the plating process, that's something that we would not go through unless it was some type of variance they were requesting. Then maybe we have some authority to request some additional safety measures. But if it goes through the plating process, it would be not part of that.
Okay.
Bobby?
In looking at the agreement, I have a concern about the park dedication fees and giving those up 100% and using the park in your development. I just think that there is an opportunity that the park would be overwhelmed by local residents, and that really it's not big enough to satisfy local residents as well as people that will live in the development. So I would prefer taking or requiring that the dedication fees be paid and that we use the money to dedicate our own park. We've got land that we purchased across the street and down the block. And I think we need to look at moving forward with that park instead of accepting this park as a public park. That's my comments.
My study of apartments on the south side ranged from the town park complex at the corner of South Adams and Friendship Lane to the entrance of the 1019 complex on East Friendship Lane. The distance between these two apartment complexes is approximately 1.4 miles. Conveniently, the city-owned 10-acre Schmidt property that we bought to use for a park that's on Friendship Lane, which is next to the detention pond, is equidistant and walkable from both complexes. Other apartments in close proximity are situated on Eagle Street, South Creek Street, Sunrise Street, and Highway Street. There are 11 existing apartment complexes in this area, bounded by Highway Street to the north, Friendship Lane to the south, Walmart to the east, and South Adams Street to the west. Within this area, there are approximately 1,536 people living in the existing apartment complexes named. Conservatively speaking, another 1,177 people could be added to this number when the McDonald Company's Reserve at Vineyard Oaks and the Seco Ventures project are built out. This would bring a total of 2,713 people living in just the apartment complexes on the south side of town. This does not include people living in existing single-family home neighborhoods in the immediate area, which I estimate to be approximately 411 people. Nor does it include the 1,737 potential residents from the planned Friendship Oaks R1A subdivision on Friendship Lane. So what does this tell us? Currently, we have 1,945 citizens living in this end of town with an eventual potential population or addition of 1,777 people for a total of about 4,861 people. Though we have several other parks in town, there are none that directly service the citizens of the South Side. I believe we need a neighborhood community park in the south side of town because of the continued and future growth of the area. The city purchased the 10-acre Frank Schmidt property on Friendship Lane with this in mind. Let's use park impact fees to begin the development of this needed resource. I understand that Seco Ventures can use their Parkland credits of $200 per unit and put them toward the building of a park currently planned for the development. However, I feel Seco Ventures should pay the city of Fredericksburg 100% of the park development impact fee of $300 per unit. These funds should be then used to help develop a city park for the South Side neighborhood citizens on Friendship Lane. I understand that Mr. Needham has stated that if council affirmatively votes to modify the parkland fees in the current annexation agreement, the developer would instead provide amenities based on their needs. This could then change the proposed map of the park, which was included as an exhibit in the annexation agreement. I understand and I accept this. But I believe we need to vote tonight to modify the section on parkland dedication. We have a park development fee because the addition of new residences and new apartment complexes impacts our existing park system. Paying a park impact fee is no different than paying our sewer water impact fees. The city imposes these fees because all development impacts the existing system currently in place. As financial stewards of our citizens' tax dollars, I believe it is in the best interest of our community to ensure a proper return on their investment in the park system. I believe the city of Fredericksburg should collect the park development fee from Seco Ventures, as well as all future apartment and housing developers, so that our community can continue to develop parks which benefit all the citizens of our community. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. Good comments, but I'm going to share with you, these folks are fixing to put in a park, and when you do a park dedication fee, and parks are very, 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 very expensive, as we saw from the sports complex attempt of putting in ball fields and et cetera. I don't want to say this money would be a drop in the bucket, because it's not a drop in the bucket. It is a substantial amount of money, but our parks right now are hard to maintain and develop, and I don't want to put an injury on the spot, because I'm not going to do that. But I'm going to share with you, parks have always been the bottom of the budget. If there's going to be anything cut, it's going to be from the parks. One of the budget items we cut this past year were putting in new restroom facilities at Lady Bird Johnson Park, restroom and shower facilities, and that needed to be, excluded from the budget. Something that's been needed out there for many, many years. There's many, many needs at the parks, and very little budget money to accomplish all the things that the park departments had to come and do for the many, many, many years they've been doing it. I feel like this what they're going to do there is going to be an asset to the citizens that live in that development. I will share with you, my grandchildren and I, we have enjoyed all the parks. Certainly, if this one is developed by the developers, I'm sure we'll come by and take a look at it as well. And so I'm in favor of what they have presented here. I think they have a good plan. Anytime you ask people to put more money into development, then they have less money to make that. What I think they're attempting to do is make it where somebody can afford attainable, what the word workforce housing. So when you put that kind of burden on the developer who is providing a park already, I think it's going to give them a challenge on trying to develop the quality housing that they would like to provide for the citizens of Fredericksburg. So I'm in favor of what's been presented.
Mayor, I'd like to make a statement and a motion.
Please.
I like this concept. I think right now it's too conceptual for us to make those types of decisions and make those types of commitments. The park could be readdressed at final plat, which is a more appropriate place to do it when you know what the total costs are, how much of the land is actually being developed as parkland, and then you can address any issues with fees, how they get paid up front, or whether they get rebated on the back end during the final plat discussion. I'm not comfortable putting it in the annexation agreement at this time. And therefore, I'd like to make a motion to amend Annexation Agreement Z-2101 with Seco Ventures to do two things. Number one, strike Section 4 in its entirety from the agreement. And number two, add the requirement that the developer will construct a sidewalk during Phase 1 on the west side of South Eagle Street from Friendship Lane to the Eagle Street entrance of their development, so that we can provide adequate walking traffic from their development opening up to Friendship Lane.
Okay, we have a motion by Polly. Does everyone understand that? Okay, do I have a second?
I do have one question. If we approve this as presented by Polly, would the park dedication fees come back to council, or would that be an item that would be
resolved by staff during the plat process?
A little bit of both. So the applicant will work with staff to prepare their Parkland dedication narrative, and we would bring that as part of the preliminary plat. So when that goes to planning and zoning, they look at the preliminary. We would work with them to get the narrative in the Parkland. Most things won't change. The fees will be the same depending on if their LUEs change, but ultimately it will be you that has to accept that Parkland agreement. So at that point, it may be the same agreement you see now, it may be different, it may be modified, but it will be handled by staff, but ultimately accepted by council.
Okay, I like the project. I'm in favor of the project. I just would like, you just gave me the reassurance that it would come back to council, possibly, and we could take a look at it at that point. Do you have any comments?
I have a motion, I don't hear a second yet.
With that being said, I'll second.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion by Polly and a second by Bobby. All those in favor?
Charlie, before we take that, we might
ahead.
want to clarify for the public, because they may not know what we're talking about with section
Sure.
4. So the motion on the floor is to remove all reference to Parkland in the agreement, and the second part of the motion was to add the sidewalk on Eagle Street. That's correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carries 3-1. Thank you.
Thank you.
Moving on then to 8A. Consider the approval of ordinance 2021-05 annexing and assigning a zoning classification of the planned unit development, PUD, for approximately 5.044 acres of land located on the west side of South Eagle Street, approximately 1,000 feet south of the southwest corner of Friendship Lane and South Eagle Street, Z2101, first of two readings. The city may waive the second reading. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So to follow up, this is kind of the next piece of this project on the Seco Ventures that we've been working at. So if you recall, a couple meetings back, we approved the zoning of a PUD for what was currently in the city limit. The remainder of their property is 5 acres. It's in the ETJ. They need that to come into the city so they can combine with these. That's why we did the annexation agreement prior to this. So if this property comes in, the zoning on this will be PUD. It will be the same for the same development that's within the city. All the regulations would be the same. So if you recall, there was some height limitations that were set. Instead of 3-story, there were 2-story for the front buildings up along Friendship. There was a requirement for a 25-foot rear yard setback, so that would apply for this area that is part of the annexation agreement. And then the same land use requirements that were put by previous council previously is still in the mix. So I believe there were certain land uses that we struck. There was others that we did by conditional use permit. So this will just be assigning an extension of that existing zoning into the newly annexed area. So if you have any questions, I'll be glad to answer those.
Questions? Tom?
No questions.
Bobby?
No.
Polly?
No.
I have none either. We'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented
We want to do one or two, waive the second reading?
and waive the second reading.
Okay. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Second by Polly. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries.
Tom,
8B,
did you say aye?
Aye.
okay. Well, I didn't hear any other. 8B, consider the ordinance, approval of the ordinance of 20-21, approve the ordinance 2021-06, amending the Article 24.000 recreational fees for the Appendix A fee schedule of the Code of Ordinance to replace the current swimming pool season pass system with a punch pass system, so to provide a greater convenience and flexibility to city pool users. First of two readings. City Council may waive the second reading. Caitlin, here you are. Thank you.
Good evening, council members and mayor. I'm Caitlin Brazel. I'm the recreation superintendent for the city of Fredericksburg. So up until this point, we have had a season pass system for our aquatic facilities that an individual could pay $50 and receive this pass, or a family for 4 would be $125. Any additional family member could be added on for $20. These passes were just for these particular members. Only them could use these. Staff would like to help simplify this current system to provide more convenience for the customer, as well as make a more streamlined system for our pool cashiers, as well as our recreation park staff at the park headquarters, to help speed up the transactions. So what we're proposing as the punch pass would be valid for 12 entries for the price of 10. Daily entrance rate currently is $2, so the punch pass would be $20, saving each guest $4 per pass. This could be used by any guest. It would no longer be limited to individual or family members. They could bring neighbors, friends, no longer have to have a pass and then still have to carry cash with them. They could just use any passes for who they wish that day. After looking at other cities and counties, we did come on this. I did include those as well. We are considering a motion to adopt the new swimming pool 12 punch pass at the rate to go in effect this summer for the season. I will take any questions.
Okay, I have a question. So Charlie Keeney leaves his pass on the table at City Hall, and I pick it up. So I can use Charlie Keeney's pass because it's a valid pass to go swimming with my 8 friends.
So we would have Charlie Keeney's information on there. If that individual did go and remove that person's name on it and just say that it got removed, then there could be the chance of that. But that is something that we are currently dealing with our current system as well. At least this new system would limit the amount of free passes, because up until this point, it was an unlimited amount of free access.
So if Charlie wanted to take me swimming, he could?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. So the other question I have is then, I've got the pass, and when I bring my family to come swim, I will need to present that pass. I can't come in unless I've got the pass.
Yes, you will present that pass, and then they will basically, much like many of the convenience stores, it's kind of like a rewards card. You get that punched.
Okay. That's fine. And it simplifies your life.
Absolutely.
And it protects Mayor Keeney from having people steal his pass.
No, I think it's going to expedite your bookkeeping there as well.
I do too.
I show up with my pass and I want to use it for 6 people. I use it for 6 people, and away we go.
Definitely.
Very good. Doesn't have to be family members and so forth. I think it's a good plan. Any other concerns?
Mayor, I would move to accept the Parks Department's recommendation for the punch pass and to waive the second reading.
Second.
Motion by Tom, second by Bobby. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. Thank you. That wasn't too tough on you, was it? Okay. We're going to move now item 9E to have consider, discuss, and take action regarding the FY 2020 audit presentation. Maura?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The accounting firm of ABIP has performed an audit of the city's annual financial statements for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2020. The financial statements are the responsible of the city's administration. The auditor's responsibility is to express an opinion on the financial statements presented based on their audit. Tonight, Janet Pittman will present an overview of the city's financials. After she presents the audit with the information, it's recommended that the financial statements be accepted into the records of the city as presented.
Could I hold you off for just a little bit? Tom Marshall, you had asked to speak to this for 3 minutes, please, Tom? I'm sorry, I missed that, so we'll let him have his little say-so, and then we'll have you presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie.
Thank you.
I hope this,
Just a sec. Up there's the clock. Good. If not, I was going to have to time you.
I hope this addition of the audit report to the packet is possibly a result of trying to get a little bit more communication between the council and the city. I think it's definitely a step in that direction, even if it wasn't intended that way. With that, I would also like to say that 200 pages of financial information is kind of hard to digest. Anybody who happens to be able to download the information and look through it, it's going to take them a while to look through it and digest it and find out if they have any interest in any of those items that are in there. I'd maybe suggest to possibly open this topic up for a subsequent meeting if there is any kind of interest, expressed by citizens, because again, it's hard to cover all that information, dive into it, and try to digest it. Maybe even have the city council do like a presentation of parts of the city budget, what's going on, to explain to the people, again, in the interest of opening up and being communicative to the city, to the citizenship. My question, after having read into it what I could, is I noticed about a $750,000 drop in interest or investment expense between 2019 and 2020. That translates into a sizable sum of money that was no longer invested in 2020, that was invested in 2019. I'd just like to know, for curiosity's sake, what caused that reduction in investment? That can be talked to in the presentation that we're getting tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You're ready to go. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to throw you to the back of your chair.
That's okay. Good evening. Thank you for having me here this evening to go over the results of your 2020 audit. Just a brief explanation of how we start our audit and plan to do the audit is what we do is what we call a risk assessment. So we're looking at all your major processes: accounts payable, cash disbursements, cash receipts, and payroll. And we're looking at the internal controls over those major processes to make sure that you have good internal controls and good segregation of duties. This helps us plan our audit. However, if we have an area that we think needs some specific audit procedures over it, that maybe you've got some internal controls issues. But we are happy to report that we didn't have any segregation of duty issues and nothing to report to council on those types of items. So you do have the report in front of you, and I will go through it rather briefly. We did sit down with management last week and went through it pretty detailed. On page 2 is our independent auditor's opinion. As Laura mentioned, it is actually the only piece in this document that is ours. Everything else is prepared by the city. And it is what we call an unmodified opinion. It's the best opinion that you can receive from us. And it basically means we didn't make any modifications to your financial statements, and they are presented in accordance with generally accepted accounting principles. So again, good news, that is the best opinion that you can get. On page 3 is the management discussion and analysis. It is really very highly condensed. It's comparative to prior year. It lumps all your funds that you have together. So I wasn't going to really focus on that. I'd like to focus more on individual funds. On page 16 are your governmental funds. These are your general fund, your capital projects fund, and your debt service funds. And at the bottom of page 16 is your unassigned fund balance for the general fund. It's $9.1 million. That represents 6 months of operating reserves. Last year it was 5 months, so you did add a little bit to that. You do have a city policy, fund balance policy of 25%. This is a little over 50%. Very healthy fund balance. You also have some restricted funds in the general fund, $1.6 million. Most of that is for tourism, and that fund balance is generated by your hotel occupancy taxes, meant to be spent for promoting tourism. Your capital projects fund has $165,000 left in it. That's left over from some bond money that wasn't spent. I believe the plan is to transfer that to your debt service fund next year, which you can use those funds to pay off the principal and interest on the debt that you issued for your capital projects. Your debt service fund has $26,000 in fund balance. It's a very good management of that fund. You don't want to accumulate a lot of tax money in that fund. You really should only be accumulating what you need to pay your debt service, your principal and interest payments. So again, good management of that fund, not a huge fund balance, and you don't want there to be. On page 18, you did have a net change in fund balance in your general fund. It's towards the bottom of the page of 2.7. Small fund balance in the capital projects fund. Basically, that's just interest. And again, in the debt service fund, only a $1,000 increase in your fund balance. You do see that you have a prior period adjustment in both the general fund, and we'll see it again in the water and electric fund. And this was due to incorrectly reporting investment earnings last year on those U.S. Treasury securities. So we did correct that this year. So it was a little higher than it should have been last year. Now I'm going to move to page 24, which is your enterprise funds, and it's your, what we call statement of revenues and expenses and changes in net position, basically an income statement. You can see that your change in net position has decreased in all the funds except for the electric and drainage. Specifically, some concern was noted in the EMS fund, $500,000, which you ended up with a deficit fund balance or net position in that fund. That is due to the fact that your net pension liability, remember we started recording that about 5 or 6 years ago, it really increased this year. So there were some expenses related to increasing the net pension liability from $8 million to $10 million. That caused that decrease, or the decrease in fund balance. Does anyone have any questions so far? Okay. Beginning on page 33, and you don't have to switch that page, is the beginning of the notes to the financial statements. Basically, they provide more information on some of the numbers in the front of the report. I only wanted to highlight a couple of the notes. The first one is on page 42, and it's the credit risk. What we do is look at to make sure you are collateralized during the year, and you were. So this is good news. You are in compliance also with your investment policy to have the proper collateralization over your bank deposits during the year. The other one I wanted to mention was at the bottom of page 48. You did have a refunding this year of your 2013 utility system revenue bonds. And you did have when you did that, you had some savings of almost $400,000 over the life of those bonds. Beginning on page 50, and there's probably 10 or 12 pages, all related to your pension plan and all the actuary assumptions and the changes, why it changed during the year. I'm not going to go over that. Page 65. This is your budget to actual. So we are required to show your original budget, your final budget, and then how it compares to your actual. And you can see that your budget for revenue was a little over $16 million, but you actually received $18.2 million. So you had a positive variance in your revenue of $2.2 million. Most of that is from your general sales tax and also your hotel occupancy taxes. You also had a grant for Corona relief funds, so there was also a grant increase there. You did spend a little bit more than what you budgeted, $389,000. But if you turn to page 66, you can see at the bottom, your final budgeted fund balance was $8 million, but your actual fund balance was $10.7 million. So you had a $2.7 million positive variance in what you budgeted your fund balance for. That's all I have on the financials. I don't know, Laura or Kent, if you wanted to add anything that you wanted to highlight, or if anyone has any questions, I would be glad to take those on the financials.
I don't have any questions personally, but when I do, I give this young lady a visit, and then she tries to help me muddle through what I don't understand.
Okay.
Thank you.
Sure. And then we also issue a separate letter. I know everybody got one. It's all basic information, required information from the auditors to the governance authority, which is, of course, City Council. The only thing I do want to mention is at the bottom of page 2, we are required to perform certain tasks over your compliance with the Public Funds Investment Act, and we did find that you are in compliance with that act. I also want to take this opportunity to thank Laura and her staff for getting us all the information we needed to do our audit. It was a very different year, obviously. We did a lot of it remotely. There was a lot of scanning a lot of documents to us so that we could share those in our secure environment share file. So it was quite a burden for their department this year, and I do appreciate that.
Mayor and council, I'd just also like to recognize Laura. I was hoping some of her staff would be here tonight so they could be recognized, but she has a great staff in the finance department, and a lot of legwork goes behind the audit report. A lot of that is done by her and her staff versus the auditors, and so I wanted to recognize the finance department. And then I think also wanted to mention that you keep in mind that we gained over $2.8 million in the general fund during a year when we were in the pandemic. And I think that speaks highly for kind of our financial management with the finance department, that we actually budgeted a deficit last year of $48,000, and we had a positive variance of $2,825,000. So again, during a very difficult, challenging year, we were able to gain quite a bit of money in our general fund. So we're pleased with that, and thank you to the auditor for their great job. This is what, the second or third year?
This is our third year.
Third year, yeah. So we're very pleased with the relationship that we have with our auditors, and hopefully that will continue.
Thank you.
Ollie, anybody question, Tom?
Needless to say that 2020 was a challenging financial year for businesses in town, for households, but also for the city of Fredericksburg. I believe that the city council, the city staff recognized early last year, beginning in March, before we even got into the budget process, that we were going to see decreases in revenue sources that had historically been sort of the baseline of the money that we operate our city with. And the city council had to make some tough decisions on delaying projects, on cutting back projects, on using fund balance, taking money out of our savings accounts, out of the accounts to provide essential services, to continue projects that we felt were in the public interest. Laura and her team were instrumental in in guiding us to what monies we could use, what monies we couldn't. I have to commend Kent and his assistant city manager, Clinton Bailey, for their job in working with every department in the city to last year to find cuts so that going into this, we could have a balanced budget using fund balance. And it's kind of like when you got your own household budget, when your expenses go over, that's why you have a savings account. That's why you have something that you can pull money out of so that you can continue to operate normally. So I think this shows that we do a very good job in the city of Fredericksburg in managing your money, because it's your money, it's my money, we're there to provide services, to enhance our lives as citizens in this community. And my hope is that in the areas where we had to make cuts last year and delay programs, that this year when we get into budget, we will be able to restore some of those programs, and maybe we'll have the money to build some restrooms or they're known as permanent porta potties, right? Okay. Thank you.
Thanks, Tom. With that, we'll move on to items 8C. Oh, I'm sorry.
Do we need a motion?
I make a motion that we accept the audit report.
A motion by Tom, thank you. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, opposed, there are none. I'm sorry that I forgot about the motion.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you.
Mayor, I'm sorry. I don't believe we answered Mr. Marshall's question about investment earnings. Could we go back to that?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, Janet, could you help us on that? Did she answer that?
I think she did about the investments, yes, because there was an adjustment.
Okay.
Could you come to the mic, please? Thank you. That's all right.
Make sure we answer his question.
I'm hard of hearing too. Thank you.
Okay, sorry. We did have a prior period adjustment. It was too high last year. We had to adjust that this year. And we did that through a restatement of fund balance. Laura, did you want to add anything to that?
No, I don't have it.
Okay.
Did that answer your question?
Not exactly. I guess the question in my mind is that, what I'm hearing is that there was no great reduction in the amount of investments that the city has. It was some type of a clerical adjustment or something, or
Well, it was a clerical adjustment, but also you changed your portfolio. So you went from U.S. Treasury securities to pooled accounts. So there was a difference also in the types of investments from 19 to 2020.
I think also, Janet, wasn't there, I think we had financed $18 million in water revenue bonds, and we drew a lot of interest off those, and we started paying that down, and so we didn't have that $18 million to invest anymore. I think that was a contributing factor.
Spending some of the bond money.
Right, and then in addition, Tom, the interest rates are just quite a bit lower than they were a year ago too, and so we just don't get as much return on any of our investments.
I think that $18 million probably.
Okay, thank you. Ready to move on? Okay, 8C. Consider the approval of Resolution 2021-04R regarding the application of Atmos Energy Corporation, Mid-Tex Division, to increase the rates under the Gas Reliability Infrastructure Program, suspending the effective date of this rate application for 45 days, authorizing the city to continue to participate in the coalition of cities known as the Atmos Texas Municipalities, determining that the meeting at which the resolution was adopted comply with the Texas Open Meetings Act, making such findings and provisions related to the subject, and declaring the effective date. Kent?
Mayor and council members, I think you're all aware that the city of Fredericksburg, along with about 40 other cities in the state, belong to an organization called Atmos Texas Municipalities, or ATM. This is a group of cities that join together whenever we have a rate increase filed by Atmos Gas Company. We come together and we hire a legal firm out of Austin, Herrera Law and Associates. They've represented the group for about 10 or 15 years. And they go through the rate filing, review it, and make recommendations back to the cities as far as whether or not the rate is reasonable and meets the requirements of state law. This year, Atmos has filed a rate increase, which is included in your packet, that if it is adopted by the Railroad Commission, will result in an increase in residential rates from $26.45 per month to $31 per month, so about a $4.55 increase in gas rates charged by Atmos. The resolution before you tonight is asking for a postponement in the rate consideration by the Railroad Commission to allow us additional time to review all the details behind that rate filing. And so if you approve the resolution this evening, the rate increase will be delayed from April 27th to June 11th, and that again will give us additional time to review that. And this postponement is in compliance with state law.
Thank you. Questions, Polly? Tom?
The only thing that I would mention here is that the industrial and the transportation rate the proposed rate from Atmos is an additional $262 a month, going from a current charge of about $1,201 to $1,464. I believe that we should approve the delay to give the city more time and the GRIP organization more time to study the ordinance, study the rate increases.
Is that a motion?
I'll make it a motion.
Have a motion by Tom.
Second.
Second by Polly. I do have a question. I've seen these before. How successful are these cities in actually getting, how successful are these cities getting any kind of relief on this?
Not very successful. The law is on the side of the Atmos Gas Company, basically. There's not a whole lot we can do to disapprove the rate increase. We can, of course, go through it and take our time, but most of the time the rate increase filing is approved by the Railroad Commission.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. Moving on to 8B, consider, discuss, and take appropriate action for the annex agreement requested by property owner for the property located at 701 West Live Oak Street. Jason?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. This property is approximately 10 acres. That's at the southwest corner of Post Oak and Live Oak. If you'll actually recall, this property owner was part of our Area 6A, 6B annexations that we did a while back. At the time, she signed the non-annexation agreement, did not want to be in the city limit. Since then, she's had some issues with the septic. Her septic has failed. She's been doing monthly pump and haul, so she's having that pumped out and hauled off at some great expense. And so she approached the city asking if there was a way we could help her out. We discussed, obviously, annexation was a way that we could provide services. So she wants to move forward with that annexation. Her big concern was losing her ag exemption, so I verified with the appraisal district. I talked to her several times, so she will maintain her ag exemption. City codes allow her to run the livestock that she's going, so she's on board with this. I think the only thing different on this annexation that's a little different, I talked to Daniel about giving her the opportunity to connect immediately following approval of this agreement so we can give her some relief and help her out. And then you'll see this item come forward as far as public hearings of the next meeting so that we can actually attribute the zoning for her property once it comes into the city limit. We wanted to keep it nice and simple and clean for her to save time, so we're not looking at any future land use plans plan adjustments for the area or any future zoning changes. Her property, future land use plan calls for high-density residential, so we'll bring her in as R3. She's single family. She can continue to operate how she's going. So that's all I have tonight, unless you have any questions for me.
I have one question. The applicant has agricultural use of the land right now.
Yes.
So does she have wells on her property? A well?
She does have a well.
And will she be able to use that well still for agricultural use for her livestock?
Yes, at this time, she will only be connecting to sewer. At some point in the future, we may have some conversations on connecting to city water, but at this point, it is just the flat rate for the sewer.
Okay.
And I did discuss with her, as long as she doesn't add pigs to the agricultural use, she'll be okay with the city standpoint, so.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope.
Tom? Polly? Nope. Okay, there be none. I'll entertain a motion.
I'll move to approve as presented.
Have a motion by Bobby. Second by Polly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries. Moving to 9D. Consider and discuss take action regarding the partial release of a water line easement that is no longer used to transmit water from the old Oxane water well to the city limits. Clinton? No, I'm sorry, Chris.
That's okay. Chris Canesi, Assistant Director of Public Works and Utilities for the City of Fredericksburg. As you just read there, Charlie, the Boot Ranch development happened a few years back, and as part of that development, the old Oxane well was located at a part that they petitioned the city to relocate at their expense. That well was relocated and can be seen here on page 128 of your packet, excuse me. At the top portion of that page, you can see just to the left there, the larger circles with the little W in the middle. That's where the new well is located. That old Oxane well, obviously, as you mentioned, transmitted water to the city of Fredericksburg. That Oxane well is still used in its new location, but the old water line that went from the old well to the down to the south is no longer used. In fact, that particular portion has basically been abandoned. The portion to the south, that infrastructure was repurposed and is now used for a reclaimed water line because a new potable water line was constructed. The portion that's in bold there on page 128 is a portion, again, that the city has no interest in building any infrastructure in the future. And we'd make a recommendation to release that portion of the easement, which is why it's a partial release and not a whole release of that easement. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Polly?
No questions.
Chris, so there's still water pipe underneath the ground?
Yes, sir. It was just abandoned in place. Obviously, some fittings were put in when the reclaimed water line was rerouted to the effluent pond.
Okay.
But that portion of the water line, it's my understanding, has just been abandoned.
Okay.
Polly?
No questions.
Okay. I don't have any either, so I'll entertain a motion.
Mayor, I move that we release the partial water line easement in the Boot Ranch subdivision.
We have a motion by Tom.
Second.
Second by Polly. Any further discussion? Being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? There is none. Motion carries. Okay, F. Consider, discuss, and take action regarding the allocation of hotel occupancy tax, HOT, funding for the 2021. And we have a number of applicants. I'm just gonna name them so folks know who's all applied. The Gillespie County Fair and Festivals Association, the Chamber of Commerce, the Chamber of Christmas Parade, the Optimus Hill Country Run, the Fredericksburg Food and Wine Fest, Oktoberfest, Friends of the Gillespie County Country Schools, the J.C. Crawfish Festival, Farmers Market, Admiral Nimitz, der Staatenschutzfriedhof, Fredericksburg Theater Company, Fredericksburg Music Club Incorporated, Fort Martin Scott, Friends, der Künstler von Fredericksburg, Hill Country Film Society, the Gillespie County Historical Society, the Gillespie County Historical Society Public Restrooms Provider, former Texas Rangers Celebrate Texas, former Texas Rangers History, Stonewall Chamber of Commerce, the Fredericksburg Art Guild, the Fredericksburg Rotary Club Foundation Incorporated Craft Beer Festival, Heritage School Eisenbaum, and the Gillespie County Children's Foundation. With that being said, I will start with Polly. If you have any questions or concerns?
I would like to pull the following items for further discussion, and the ones that are not pulled, then we could vote on in a single motion. Is that okay?
If the council agrees.
Yes. Yes. Go ahead. Okay with y'all. I would like to pull the former Texas Rangers, both of their applications for further discussion. And I would like to pull the Gillespie County Children's Foundation application for further discussion.
And I have a request of the council on the Gillespie County Historical Society restrooms, $3,795. I would like to pull that from the hotel occupancy tax discussion and place that item in the tourism fund, or we could vote to fund it tonight using hotel money, and then in the future, any discussion of funding the restroom, which used to be called the Uptown Visitor Center, should be a line item in the tourism fund.
So would you like to pull that for discussion and then vote on the others?
Yes.
Okay, so we have 4 applications so far, Mayor, that's been identified for separate discussion. We've got the Historic Society Public Restroom, the 2 Texas Rangers, and the Children's Foundation. Are there any others that you want to pull for separate discussion? The Mayor, I would recommend a motion for the other 20 applications, and then we can maybe discuss and take motions on the 4 that are kind of hanging out there.
Motion, Polly?
I would move that we approve the remaining items as presented.
I have a motion by Polly, and need a second?
And I would point discussion. Do we have a figure on how much money we're talking about here?
How much money for what?
How much for to approve the 20 items that are on here? How much?
We'd have to add that. Give us a minute if you want to. I can tell you though, Councilman, I had a conversation with the mayor today. We had a number of applications last year that were withdrawn because they did not have their events because of the COVID. And so we have plenty of money in the tourism fund in this line item. If the council wanted to fund all applicants, their funding would be available.
Okay.
Tom, the number would be $456,662.
456.
According to
your math?
My math.
Is that?
That's my math.
University of Texas Arlington math?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, we have a motion, and I want to be sure we have this correct. We're going to pull the Gillespie County Historical Society Public Restrooms Provider, the former Texas Rangers Celebration Texas, former Texas Ranger History, and the Gillespie County Children's Foundation.
I will second that motion.
Okay, we have a second by Tom. Any other discussion? There's none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, is there anyone here representing or you have questions? I would presume we want to ask the people in charge, or how do you want to handle that?
Yeah, do we have people, you want to start with Texas Rangers since there are
Sure,
2 of them?
2 of them, yes. Or is there anyone here for that? Okay, Adam.
Dr. Gins.
If you'll introduce yourself and your position, I'd be appreciative.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm Dr. Jody Edward again, the Executive Director of the Texas Rangers Heritage Center.
Okay, so when you brought back the count, it was like 625 for the Celebrate Texas?
Correct, and it's a number that's grown over the years as the events become more known.
Okay, and then remind me on the history one, what's the attendance on that one? Do you remember? I don't have my book in front of me, otherwise I'd.
I can pull that up for you, just give me one moment.
Okay.
Could you repeat that, please?
500 to 600.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So my concern is that the $40,000 for attendance of about 1,200 or so people seems a bit high for us to do this year. I'd like to reduce that amount. And then if your numbers start going up next year, then we can start increasing it again. But 40,000 for that amount, that number of people attending seems a little light right now.
My only comment to that would be is the request was made to help us do an expanded amount of marketing that would allow us to draw in those larger numbers.
Okay.
I personally don't have a problem with it. I think all these organizations are deserving, and especially you guys, because we went through a pandemic where things were tough. And I'm in full favor of awarding this whole amount, because I think it's time to kickstart our community again, getting it back to where we need it to be. So I don't have an issue with additional promotion on that. Tom?
I'm concerned, Jody, I'm concerned with the doubling, especially from the standpoint of what else are you going to do for advertising to draw people in? Are you working with the chamber? Have you had any talks with the CVB about kicking up advertising with them?
We do engage actively with the CVB, and we have sought their advice on that advertising. Now, they have been very specific that they don't advertise specific venues through them, and so that's my understanding that's not what they do.
Okay, is the advertising, how are you going to spend the extra money? Where's it going?
It's in a wider circulation into the markets that are Dallas, Houston, and that bring in people that actually stay here. We haven't done a lot of marketing outside the Hill Country regional print marketing. That's what our budget's been limited to in the past, and so we're trying to reach out to those Dallas and Houston markets.
Okay. And how are you going to reach out to those markets? Are you D-Magazine?
Exactly, those type of regional markets that can reach interested, and we try to target them to constituencies that would be interested in this type of venue and activities. And in particular, regards to the symposium this year, we're actually bringing in the chief ranger and several captains. In fact, the first female captain, Captain Winnie Wakeman. We're bringing in the first PhD Texas Ranger, Dr. James Thomas, Captain Dr. James Thomas. And this is going to be a particular draw this year. And they're talking about who the modern Rangers are and that sort of thing. And combined with everybody's eagerness to get back out there and those types of folks to get to hear from. It's a rare opportunity. We think that's going to be a particular draw, and so we want to get the word out to as many people around the state as possible. And as far as Celebrate Texas, again, that's a joint activity that we do with the traditional Indian nations, and giving them an opportunity to come back to the site, which they have a long-standing historical connection to, and the more we have to bring people into that. So again, it's about getting a wider reach than in the past is the key element to a larger market. And again, of those people that that come in to not just for a day trip from Austin, San Antonio, but from the Dallas and Houston markets in particular, where they're going to come and stay, hopefully 2 or more nights.
Okay, I don't have an issue with the increase, being that I think it's we're moving back to what we're going to see as our new normal. I would like to suggest that if you could keep the city informed as to we're going up $20,000. How much, where's the extra $20,000 in advertising? So if D Magazine, here, we're going to put ads in D Magazine, or we're going to put ads in the Houstonian, is that normal?
Yes, sir. They're required to submit to Shelley documentation of all their expenses.
Okay. So,
but we'll make a special effort this year to review Jody's expenses and make sure that they come up to the requested amount.
Right.
Or the approved amount. So Jody, you're going to have to keep real good books this year.
Yeah.
We're going to be.
Absolutely, happy to do so. We appreciate the consideration and the generosity. Thank you.
I don't have a problem with either one. On the Celebrate, the amount is less than was approved last year. It's more than what was funded because of the pandemic. And then in the history, it's the same amount that was approved last year. So there was not an increase over last year. So I'm fine with both of them.
Okay.
Okay, good. All right. Do we want to make a motion to approve that, or we want to go through the rest of them?
Let's approve these individually.
Okay.
That's okay.
That's perfectly fine. That way we're pretty clear on what we're doing. Thank you, Polly. I'll entertain a motion then, Polly.
I move that we approve the Texas Ranger Celebrate Texas and the Texas Ranger History funding.
second.
We have a motion by Polly and a second by Tom. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Okay, let's go to Polly. You raised questions about the Gillespie County Children's Foundation. So
Yeah.
is there someone here for that?
Yes.
And if you'll introduce yourself again, I'd appreciate it. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Amy Biker with Gillespie County Children's Foundation.
Thank you.
So my question is, this is going to be the first time this is going to be done,
Yes, ma'am.
right, here in town. And what % of your budget will we be funding?
It is just under 50%,
Okay, so your total budget is?
27,000.
27,000?
And what are we funding?
It would be the publication of the books, 1,500 books that would be sold at the Pioneer Memorial or the Pioneer Museum.
And how much are they selling for, and who gets the money?
So they'll be sold for $12 to $15. The money goes to our foundation to sustain the project, keep it going. Anything that's left over will go to another 501 that has similar goals within our county. Our primary one we're looking at is the Fredericksburg Education Foundation, or the Education Foundation, because we want it to fund education for kids here. We just want to keep it all here. So it's just to keep the project going and fund other organizations that have our same goals.
No questions.
I have a question. I know you gave a good presentation last time, but help me. This is really aimed at families with children.
Yeah.
It has an opportunity, so when they come, there's something here for the children. What would be the age bracket for them again, do you think?
So I would think 5 to 12. The biggest group would probably be second graders. That's whenever the school is identified. Fredericksburg history is kind of,
And this is something new, and this will help you get started in promoting this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So, because this is brand new.
It's brand new.
Folks around here have no idea.
Yeah, we have nothing like this, and it really is aimed at the family tourism and just keeping history relevant to our tourism.
It's not only for the visitors' families, it's also for...
It's also for the local
There
kiddos
you go.
too, but it's hot fun.
Thank you, thank you. I know we get a lot of flack that we don't do a lot yet for the locals. We aim more for the visitors, so thank you. It's for all children.
Yes.
So Amy, I've got another question then. So is this like one-time funding? We're kickstarting you, and you should be
Our
self-sustaining?
hope is to be self-sustaining. Once it's all up and running. I mean, it's statutes and children's books, and it is our hope to be self-sustaining.
And so my suggestion would be that if you have any excess hot funding left, that you don't donate that to somebody else, you return it so that we can give it back to you next year.
Yes. I don't think there'll be anything left over from hot funds getting it going, since it's,
Yeah.
Thank you.
we have some to go.
This is the incubator.
Yep.
Okay, with that being said, does anybody would like to make a motion on this one?
I'll move to approve. For the 13,000, almost said 13 million. 13,000.
You have a motion by Bobby,
That's Bobby.
motion by Bobby.
I'll second.
Oh, okay, I was waiting, I could second it, but I want to
Thank
be
y'all
polite.
so much.
And
Thank
and
We haven't
thank you.
voted yet.
Oh, I don't know what that, I guess I don't know what it means.
Have, by Polly, any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carried unanimously. Good luck, young lady.
Thank y'all so much.
Looking forward to it. I've got 7 grandkids.
Wow.
Thank you.
Gillespie County Restrooms.
Oh, the restrooms. Okay, my feeling on this was that since the restrooms that are located at the Pioneer Museum complex are the contract with the Gillespie County Historical Society expired. They have expense in keeping those restrooms clean. And so if they have agreed to keep the restrooms open to the public, but it's costing them money. So we've got the money. It's a recurring expenditure every year. So we could fund it with hot money this year, but I believe that in the future, since this is a recurring maintenance agreement, that why don't we just put a line item in the tourism fund to so that they don't have to go through the application process.
I would agree with that.
I agree.
So do we want to do that this year? Kent, would it make any difference?
Normally, we would do our budget amendments following the mid-year budget review.
So,
but
why don't we just?
I would suggest you go ahead and fund it like it is now.
And then in the future.
2022 budget, we add this as a line item.
Because all we would be doing is robbing Peter to pay Paul, and we did that,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, it comes out.
I think we'll make a cleaner motion of it, and we just, and I agree with your statement, it ought to be in a tourism fund, without a doubt.
Then, okay, so I'll make a motion that we include this in the regular hotel tax disbursements tonight.
Okay, we have a motion by Tom, second by Bobby. Any further discussion? There being none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. Thank you. Okay. That was easy. Now, I'll tell you, somebody may not have that much money for y'all next year. So, hope we do. Hope we do. Okay, city manager report, election update.
Okay, Mayor and Council, we have 4 items to update you on this evening. We'll start with the item A, which is the election update, which will be given by our city secretary, Shelley Goodwin.
Thanks, George.
So ballot by mails, we have received 216 requests for ballot by mail. They're all mailed out. We have so far 91 back. Today, early voting started 7:30 to 4:30. We had 45 voters and 1 provisional, so a total of 46. Tomorrow and next Tuesday are your extended hours, which are 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. And Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and next Monday, it's 7:30 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. This Saturday, 7:30 a.m. to 11:30 a.m. And voting is at the Girl Scout cabin, and of course, Election Day is at the middle school library from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m.
Thank you.
Any questions on the election?
None.
Okay, Mayor and Council, normally we have a city council work session following each May election. So we need to start looking for dates for the next work session. Of course, the election will be held on May the 1st. And then according to our charter, the new council members are sworn in on May 15th. We have a regular city council meeting on May the 17th, and that will be the first meeting of any newly elected council members. And so we need to look at some dates between May 17th and May 31st for the next work session. And of course, we want to avoid May 24th, that's Memorial Day. But if you would begin looking at your calendars, and we'll start polling the council to see what dates during that May 17th to 31st period work the best. Normally, again, our work sessions are held in the mornings, starting at about 8:30 till about noon. And this year, this session, staff's recommending we hold the work session back at the Cardinal Room at the golf course. And one of the reasons is we have made improvements to the Cardinal Room over the last couple of months as a result of the flood damages, and we would like an opportunity to show that facility off to the council and the public. So if that's okay with you, we'll move the work session out to the Cardinal Room, which we've had, it works real well, the setup out there. So again, just start looking for dates. We won't set any dates yet, but look at your calendars. And I don't know if any of you are planning on taking any vacation time around Memorial Day, but if so, let me know, and we'll adjust our schedule to whatever your vacations are. 4 items have been suggested for the work session. We try to limit the agenda to no more than 3 or 4 items. Normally, after each election, we revisit the council rules of procedure, and so that is recommended to be on for discussion. We also, I think, need some council discussion on the possible reuse of the middle school campus. City staff is working along with Councilman Musselman with the school district. We're making certain assumptions that the council kind of supports what we're doing, but I would like, before we get too far out there, I'd like some council discussion. Do we even want to consider reuse of the facilities over there? And are we on the right path to following the council's direction before we get too far along with discussions with the school district? So I recommend that be on the agenda. And then the budget amendments. We've had a lot of changes to our budget this year that we'll need to discuss and consider some amendments, and that probably needs to be an agenda item. And then we normally, right after the council election, start talking about the new budget, the 2022 budget, and related to what are the council's priorities for next year's budget and the budget schedule for the different work sessions and public hearings and so forth. So those are the 4 items that we have suggested. If that's okay with the council, unless you have anything else that's a higher priority, we can move one of those to a regular council meeting if you have something else you'd like to talk about at that work session. Anybody? Yes, sir.
I don't know whether we need to do it at the May work session, but on some work session in, I guess, the future, I think we need to be talking about I would like for the council to discuss the park dedication ordinance that we have and decide whether we need to modify that, whether we need to even have it on the books. I know that Jason has meetings scheduled for short-term rental. So we're going to be having a discussion on our short-term rental ordinance, and that's going to take more than one workshop session for that. But I've got no problems with these 4. I think they will probably keep us busy for 4 hours.
Any other comments or questions on that? And of course, we will certainly get the input of any newly elected council member for that work session also for agenda items and dates and so forth. So,
Kent, did you say swearing in was the 15th or the 17th?
17th.
15th Saturday.
Yeah.
Shelley said 15th.
Yeah, May 15th is a calendar, Saturday.
There's a time frame that the Secretary of State puts out. It's the 4th through, I think it's the 15th, the 14th, but our charter reads that you can't take office until May the 15th.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you, Shelley. Okay, any other comments or questions on that part of the city manager's report? If not, we'll move to item 10C, which is the sports park update, and Clinton will give that report.
Sure. Mayor, Council, just wanted to give you a brief update on the progress on the sports park. As you are aware, we are working on a draft agreement with the Soccer Association currently for the lease of some of the Ham property for development into soccer fields. As part of that process, as just being a good neighbor to the Fair Association right across the street, we've been giving the Fair Association regular updates as we move through the process. We did the same thing when we went through both bond elections, just to make sure that they knew what we were planning, and we were planning some facilities on their property potentially. So we did that last week. We met with the Fair Board and presented the new revised plan for the soccer development, and also talked a little bit about the effluent irrigation pond, which we're proposing to locate on the Fair property. There were some concerns about the pond, questions regarding size. There was an odor question, question about the easements. Would they be able to utilize the water? Questions like you would expect. So we were able to answer most of their questions, I think. And then we also talked just a little bit about access across an easement they have off of Fair Drive, which we would need permission from the Fair Association to access our property there off Fair Drive. So I think they're probably willing to do that. I don't know long-term how excited the Fair Association really is in locating that pond on their property. We did get some positive feedback, although we did have a lot of critical questions. So just like we did moving through the original planning for the sports park, we have a plan B to locate that pond on city property. So we can do that either way and still share that water with the Fair Association as they use that for the track and so forth. So we do have another plan. But we are working on the draft agreement. Did get an update from Daniel last week. We will probably have something to bring in front of the council sometime next month for your formal approval for that agreement. After that, if we do locate this pond on the Fair property, there'll be some easements and things like that we'll have to execute, and we'll bring that back to the council. So we're moving forward at this point. The Little League is still involved, although they haven't come to us with a formal plan. We expect them to remain involved in what we'd like to see as an overall plan of development, and that eventually start taking shape over the years, but it looks like that will start with soccer. So I'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Let me just add one other comment before we open it up. The county is also being requested for funding to help support this facility. So the Soccer Association will be going before the county to help fund part of this project.
So I have a question here. Is there any way that you could provide the council members with a memo outlining what's happening with the meetings, what's being discussed, so that we have some idea of what's been going on and how we got to the position before we have here's a document just presented to us. I think it would be helpful to us if we had background, if we were kept in the loop throughout the process. I'm not asking for any input into the loop, but I'd just like to know what's in the loop.
Sure. We can provide that background information well ahead of that agreement getting on a formal agenda for council consideration.
Sure. It's just like a memo to, talk with the Soccer Association today. This is what we discussed. This is what they want. This is what we proposed. We're pretty much in agreement. We disagree over these things, just so that the council has an understanding of the direction.
We can give you a list of everything that they're asking the city for and what they're asking the county for, and then it's just a matter of getting the legal language in the agreement.
Well, I think that would be, I would like to know that.
Yeah, agree.
Next.
Okay, any other questions or comments on that? That's good. Okay, thank you. The last item, just a couple of legislative updates on a couple of bills. First off, Senate Bill 10, this is the Texas Municipal League bill, which relates to banning the lobbying by cities and counties at the state legislature. That bill has passed the Senate. However, it did, there were some changes. There's just some committee substitutes on the bill before it passed the Senate. And basically it will allow the city and the county to continue to use our organizations, the County Association and the Texas Municipal League, except those organizations won't be allowed to hire outside lobbyists. In other words, their staff can do it, but they won't be allowed to go out and hire their own lobbyist. And also, they will not be able to influence legislation related to property taxation. So that is a very sensitive issue for the state legislature, as you know, the last couple of sessions. And so we cannot use TML or anybody else to lobby against any sort of property taxation bill. So those were the changes that committee substitutes were made. We can continue to support TML. TML can continue to lobby, but again, they can't hire their own lobbyists and they can't influence property taxation. Okay. So that is with the Senate version. It hasn't made it through the House yet, but stay tuned for more on that bill. So that's interesting. The other one that we're following that I've reported to before is House Bill 1869. This relates to cities' ability to do debt financing for certificates of obligation. Historically, we really haven't used certificates of obligation much here. This is debt financing that is allowable for infrastructure improvements that does not require voter approval. And a lot of cities use it for major street improvements and other kind of infrastructure like that. But in this case, the House has passed a bill that will require when cities use certificates of obligation, it counts against your maintenance and operation property tax rate. So again, we have a property tax cap in place now, and it'll be really difficult to do any C of O financing in the future and still stay within that M&O rate that's set by the new state law passed during the last session. So it will virtually eliminate certificates of obligation financing for the future. So again, that's the House version passed by the House Ways and Means Committee. It will be going before the Senate here very soon, and I would anticipate some bill coming out that will limit our debt financing in the future. So that's the two major bills that are impacting cities probably the most around the state.
Okay.
So I have a question for Kent on the lobbying bill. Would that also, I guess, apply to the Texas Association of School Boards?
Not the Senate version. The House version adds schools to in their language, but the Senate version doesn't.
Okay, so it's aimed at cities and counties and their organizations.
Just in the state. Again, the state and the House will have to get together.
Okay. And then on the House Bill 1869, I know that the city of Fredericksburg has been very, we haven't used a lot of COs. I think the last CO we used was the animal shelter.
Actually, I think that was limited tax notes, wasn't it, Laura?
No, well, it was it?
Yeah.
I think the last one was the animal shelter, and then they used a CO to buy the land for the sports park.
Yeah.
That's correct.
At least we're in better shape than Kerrville, because Kerrville has, all of their debt is CO.
Again, it won't affect existing debt, it will affect new debt.
Right.
So basically what they're saying is debt that is not voter approved will have to go in your M&O tax rate. Anything that's voter approved can go in your debt rate.
Okay. So so any CO debt is applied to the 3.5%.
That's right.
Okay. Okay.
That concludes my report, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Items for future agendas. Boy, that just wiped this out. We don't have a meeting next time.
Okay, I think we have just a few items that are on the list for the May 3rd and May 17th meeting. On May 3rd, we've got the mayor has requested we discuss the tents in the historic district, those regulations, and so we'll have something on the agenda to revisit that ordinance. And then we have annexation of, and zoning of land located on the west side of South Eagle Street. Okay, that will be actually the first reading. We pulled that off the agenda for tonight, so that will be on your next agenda. And then we have annexation agreement for services for, this is the RV park across, the proposed RV park across from the airport. And that's what we have for the next meeting so far. I'm sure we'll have other items to add to that. On May the 17th, which will be the first meeting of the new council, we have a couple of items related to Kevin Spraggins conditional use. I don't know, Jason. Jason, what do you want to explain what those are for May 17th? I'm not sure what those.
Yes, well, kind of depends on his zoning request. This is part of that annexation of the property across from the RV park, proposed RV park. I think the proposed zoning that he was looking at was manufacturing. We couldn't support that, but to do an RV park takes a CUP in that zoning district, so we had recommended doing something else like C2. That'd be something a little bit more favorable from the city's perspective. That doesn't require a CUP in that one, so kind of depending on the direction that the owner gives him will kind of depend on what we see in the future. So
this is all related to the RV park across from the airport?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Is this part of Bill Hand's property where those metal shed buildings are at?
No, this is across 16.
No, this is almost right adjacent across from the runway. It's the very wooded lot that's out there. That
yeah, I know where it's at.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Charlie, these are the other trees that were affected by the navigation easement.
Okay.
It's that hill.
Gotcha.
Okay, we also want to add to, at the May 17th meeting, Clinton and Paul Tiber will be giving a report on water supply and water conservation. That we do that every year about this time of year. And then we have one other item to add to May 17th. The council would need to revisit where you want future council meetings to be held. If you'll recall, the council agreed March, April, and May, you would have your meetings here at the Rockbox. And so May 17th, you need to decide, do we want to continue to meet over here or we want to go back to the Law Enforcement Center or somewhere else? So that will need to be added to the agenda.
I guess the question I would have, if we decide to vacate this building wherever we might want to go to, would that be enough time for the staff to ready the next spot?
Yes, sir. Everything's portable now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. I didn't want to all of a sudden jump off a cliff and we're not ready to go.
Do it.
Okay.
And then you can give us a report on what it's costing us.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Here versus, I think we need to have that.
Okay. And we need to check with KK, is it even an option to continue meeting here?
Yeah.
Right, she was very generous in offering this for a short period. I don't want to overextend her.
Right. Well, and what's our occupancy? Is there an occupancy limit at the LEB?
Okay.
All right. Council comments? I'll start with Polly on my left.
Just want to let people know, get out and vote. You got 2 council slots up for election, so please go vote. Thank you.
Bobby?
I would agree with Polly on that. And second, I attended the airport advisory board meeting today. Year-to-date fuel sales for this year over last year, that's January through March. The airport's up 22%. If you'll remember, the airport was shut down for a week in February, but according to the FBO, the airplanes have been coming in like crazy, so they're up 22%, and they're looking for their best year ever. The T hangars, 100%, and they've got 23 on the waiting list. That's all.
Thanks, Bobby. Tom?
Well, it's time to vote, and make sure that everybody understands that in early voting, there are two separate early voting locations. The city is at the Girl Scout cabin, which was built on part of the landfill next to the creek. The FISD is out at the new ag building on Friendship Lane, and I voted today in the FISD election, and they sure have their setup is high tech now, You go in and you give them your driver's license. It's run through some kind of scanner, and then you have to sign a touchpad with the disposable pen that's immediately sanitized. And then what it actually does is it prints a piece of paper with your name and I guess your driver's license or something that is, I guess that records that your name is taken off of the voter list. Okay, so that's a check where we make sure that nobody's voting twice. In Texas, vote early and vote often. So then pick up the ballot, vote, put it in the box, and it's very. I think they've got a good system. I prefer Ms. Goodwin's system. We had no problems today. I will say that the voting clerks for the city of Fredericksburg are much more friendly than the voting clerks for the Gillespie County.
Thank you. Yeah, well, I'm going to get on the vote too, but I'm going to share with you when I went to vote, it went very smooth. I didn't vote for the school board yet. The sad part was I was either the number 3 or number 4 person that had voted, I believe, unless they had several pages filled that I didn't see. So I thought the turnout at 8:30 was pretty low, and from my report, it sounds like there's not a whole lot of enthusiasm that has built up yet for voting. So again, I encourage people to get out and vote. The other thing I wanted to visit right quick is I did attend the fish fry this weekend. Got the to-go order. Being an eater that I am, I was expecting it to be pretty light, but there was enough fish on there to feed 2 or 3 people. So kudos to the fire department, EMS, and all the other personnel and volunteers who put that on. I hope they had a great success, and hopefully next year we'll be able to sit under the pavilion and actually sit and visit with visitors and natives alike. So again, congratulations to them on a good event. With that being said, I believe we're getting ready to go into executive session.
Mayor, I move that we go out of regular session into executive session.
I have a motion by Tom. I have a second by Holly. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, I need to read this. The city council will recess an open meeting and reconvene an executive session pursuant to Texas Government Code Section 551.074, personnel matters. A, consider and discuss the personal issues related to the search and appointment of a new municipal court judge. Personal matters, Section 551.704. We'll go into executive session after a 3-minute recess. And I guess we'll be back here.
They are both starting to turn by Bobby. Do we have a second? Second by Bobby. All those in favor? Aye. They all are. All right. If you want to turn, come in. No, we got that. We just need. I know we really don't.